Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios, Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, a two-part show. First up tonight, who can forget that fateful day nearly 1 year ago at the finish line of the Boston Marathon when the bombs went off? 3 people killed, hundreds injured. Perhaps as memorable, those people that jumped into the fray to help save the victims, including my guest tonight. Carlos Arrdondo joins us and his wife Meloda from Rosendale, and we'll talk about the upcoming 1-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. Then on the second half, we continue our election 2014 coverage with yet 2 more candidates in the 5th Suffolk House race. That's right, a little more than 1 week from tonight. It's no April Fool's joke, but April 1 is the Democratic primary for the 5th Suffolk House District seat. That's a seat that was vacated when the Representative Carlos Enriquez was expelled from the House. There's 5 candidates in total tonight. Barry Lawton, Jennifer Johnson join us. All that and more tonight on Talking the Neighborhoods. Stay tuned. I'm Joe Heisler, your host. Tonight, a 2-part show, and in this first half, it's an anniversary none of us really want to remember, but all of us can never forget. And of course, we're talking about the Boston Marathon bombings, preparations in high gear for this year's marathon, which is expected to draw a record number of participants. Of course, after last year's debacle, what can you say? Everyone, it's never far from their hearts or their minds. And tonight, in honor of that memorable event, joining us, a man who, like many others, jumped into the fray. Both he and his wife were at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, and little did they know that they'd be called to action. I'm talking about Carlos and Meloda Arrdondo from Rosendale, and I want to thank you both for joining us tonight. Nice to see you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Meloda,
Thank you very much.
It's always nice to see you. Well, I know you've been asked 1,000,000 times to go back to that day, but it's so vivid in our mind as you continue to see videotape over and over, and the pictures. And what you all did afterward. We, I think those of us from afar that saw it have one thought, but what were you thinking on that day? I mean, I know you were there as part of your effort promoting peace, promoting treatment for PTSS, for suicide prevention, but what were you thinking that day as you were waiting there at the finish line?
Well, we was there actually with a military friends organization who support veterans and the families. 3 of the members was supposed to do the walk that morning from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And one of them was carrying a memorial on behalf of my son and many other casualties of the war. So we was there in the finish line with a banner, 400 American flags, waiting for another group of Samaritans of Prevention Suicide who was running on behalf of my other son, Brian. Mm-hmm. So then we was just getting together that particular day, since we've been putting this together days before, and we was wearing t-shirts or the event and banners and 400 American flags. We pretty much...
And your cowboy hat.
And my cowboy hat, of course, and we was just giving to everybody in the grandstand, and cheering with everybody, meeting other families in the grandstands right now.
Yeah, there were also other families who had lost their loved ones in the wars. There were the Newtown families that were there, as well as 9/11 families were there. And we've, except for the Newtown families, we had, every year at the marathon, we had seen each other in the grandstands or the bleachers in the VIP section for the past several years.
So a gathering of friends and colleagues in common cause. Of course, no one could have anticipated what happened, and as horrendous as it was. But that day, Carlos, you jumped right into the fray. you jumped right in there, and well, as a result, you were not the only one, of course, but helped save lives, helped carry people to the triage tent. Were you even aware of what was going on, or did you just react?
No, I definitely react for what I saw, and definitely was no questions about the dimension of the explosion and the damage they did to the people. I had no doubt, and for me to go there and help out, was no other way that I was going to run away from there without me trying to help in any way. And I saw how important was to be there and help out others and save altogether, doing something.
No thought for your own safety. And Meloda, you must have been, you saw him jump in there. You must have thought, especially after the second bomb went off.
No, I'm used to it. I've been conditioned because in years past, I've lost count of how many years he used to actively be a bull clown, a rodeo clown. So if in Costa Rica, where we're from, every Christmas time and many times during the year, there are these toros a la tica. It's a certain style of bullfighting where people from the public can get into the bull ring with the bulls. And Carlos would be along with another group of people, maybe about 12, and if they saw someone was getting hurt or was getting gored by the bull or injured, they ran in and tried to distract the bull, and then someone else would try to drag that person to the first aid. And he did that for many, many years.
I think I was being prepared for something, for the future, to have someone with my ability or jump in those fences and move quick as I could.
Well, because of your efforts, I think certainly Jeff Bauman would say it, but others as well. Lives were saved, and were you surprised at the reaction? I mean, some people call you a hero, myself included, but
yeah.
How does that feel?
No. It's just so many people you see them doing amazing things that day. I cannot carry nothing legacy or hero because it was happened. We and myself, so many people, we were doing the same thing, saving life. It was like amazing people doing what they could to help save lives. And that's what that was that day, you know what I mean? It went all the way to the medical staff, personnel and doctors and nurses, and the families and friends. Mm-hmm. It's amazing therapy they've been putting together on this,
Yet captured in time is that image, again, you went with that cowboy hat, and believe me, to this day, when I see that, I think of it, and I almost get tears in my eyes, and I'm sure many other people do as well.
Well, it's funny.
You had a real effect on people's lives. I mean, I know sometimes that gets lost in the media hoopla, but it really did.
Wow.
Yeah.
He and many of the others, like Joanne Druzzi and many of the first responders, they are a symbol. That's a word that Jeff Bauman recently used with us. They've become symbols of average, everyday people not walking away, but moving to help others in the neediest time of times without thinking about themselves, because it just needed to be done.
Well, that's what I call a real selfless act, and believe me, I'm one of those that appreciates what you did. I got to ask you now. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary. It's got to be an emotional time for you, almost. As you recall, of course, your loss of your own sons, and then the loss of life that occurred that day. And how were you feeling about this? Is it an emotional time for you?
Yeah, it's been the whole time. It's been times of healing for the families, for the survivors, and the families of the survivors as well as many first responders. It's been time of healing for the city and many other people, and the race itself, the runners. It's been a time for healing for all of us. and it's going to be amazing marathon happen this year.
You're going to be at the finish line again this year?
Yes,
That's the
definitely.
hope. No one knows if they're getting passes yet, but
Oh, yeah.
so the hope is that we'll be
Yeah.
able to
You're
be there.
planning to if you
We're
can.
planning to. We hope to be there with Jeff.
Well, let's hope it's a safe finish. What about Jeff? I just read in the paper today you've remained good friends, close friends.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, a life bonding experience, not the kind I'm sure that he was thinking. And but I heard he's getting married now. So go figure what the good Lord has planned for us. Huh?
Exactly. Beautiful family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff is very funny.
Yeah.
He and Aaron have a great sense of humor, and so baby Bauman will be.
That's
will,
right.
Will
And
be,
I heard they're expecting a
yeah.
baby. So,
We'll have a lot of chuckles.
well, you've remained close.
Yeah, we knew for a while, but we were sworn to secrecy.
Sworn to secrecy.
So
yeah.
when we found out that other people knew, we were like, ooh, okay.
Well, the news is out. Will he be joining you hopefully at the parade or this year? Or?
Yeah.
At the marathon, yeah, we hope so. He and his
He
family.
mentioned it to us that he would be there with us.
That's what he wanted. We asked him, what do you want to do on the marathon day? And he said, I'm going to be with you.
So let's try to see if it happens.
Well, and of course his bride-to-be, she won't be running this year, I'm guessing, being that she's about to deliver. I got to ask you about this. How has your life changed since all of this happened? You know, I know you never had a thought of this when you jumped in to try and help save these victims, but, you know, when you do something like this, people can't help but take notice, and in many ways you become celebrities, you know, a celebrity, and has that been difficult?
Well, we know in the past we've been in the community, we've been participating in many parades in the community, in many work protests, march. We've been in the State House, many events that we've been doing before the Boston Marathon.
Long
you know
before
what I mean?
that.
And so, and this happened, and we just sort of like start doing different things with different organizations, but still continue doing what we could with what we was doing then. You know, honoring our son, you know, suicide prevention, you know, and
Veteran support, homeless veteran support, and talking about post-traumatic stress for both veterans and their military families.
And that hasn't stopped. As a matter of fact, I know you have some events coming up after the marathon that you're just as interested in.
Well, actually, there's one this Saturday.
This
A-
Saturday.
And it's a ruck, which means that the people who are doing it are going in full pack as though they were training. And they're going to be walking, they're starting in Hopkinton and ending at the marathon site. And they're doing the one this Saturday, it starts at 5 a.m. in the morning. And it will be to bring awareness to post-traumatic stress disorder and the 22 suicides a day, as well as the suicides that occur within military families, which is something we experienced.
Well, certainly with the loss of your sons. Now, I know you've always been a man of peace, you know, and peace lovers, but when you experience something like this, has that changed you, you know? When you see that kind of carnage, that kind of hate, you know, exemplified, bombing, people maimed, killed, how do you keep your faith, and how do you keep your beliefs? And I know, you know, after the death of your two sons, you know, you have worked tirelessly since then, but is it hard in the face of seeing that kind of evil close up to kind of keep that belief?
well, only I can say is just what happening here right now is the Department of Justice is going to handle this issue with this John Sanada. And we're going to support the victim families, you know what I mean, in any way we can to remember the victims. But we're going to also trying to remember the survivors, you know, and support in any way we can as well. but we need to concentrate on this situation and let the Department of Justice take care of the other issue with these young men.
But, you've been such strong advocates, and I remember when you were first on my show many years ago, and I thank you for that. You came here to talk about peace, and we talked about some other things, immigration reform, that kind of thing, but, I was so struck by your story, what you've done since the deaths of your boys, and for me, it might be hard for me to keep that. That belief in peace and in justice in the face of something like this. How do you do that, both of you?
Well, let me just tell you that as Carlos's wife, I know the nights when he doesn't sleep or can't sleep. And when I ask him what it is, he said, I'm back at the site. I see the blood. I see people who have died and the people who are maimed. And there have been times when little things we're together, where we may be on trains or buses or something like that, and we all of a sudden get a little panic thinking of whether something happened here. And especially this year, Carlos and to myself, to some extent too, we've experienced post-traumatic stress.
In your own lives.
Yes, and in the end, what ended up being a terrorist act or whatever, a very violent act, to say the least, it is amazing to watch the survivors get up and walk, and some of them run. And there's this one woman who already ran the Chicago Marathon, and she was injured in her legs. She ran it last year, and as well as Jeff, these people have all expired us and many other people. So in that way, looking into the face of such a tragedy and being able to see something positive helps maintain faith and also aids with trying to understand what's going to happen with Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. That's pretty much his issue. We all have to continue learning to live.
Well, of course, the federal government is prosecuting them, and they're seeking the death penalty.
Yeah, we're not supported the death penalty.
No, and but there are people
in general, has nothing to do with this case.
Nothing to do with this case, but
yeah, whatever the choice for the families are, we support them, thinking and what they're going through right now, as well with the survivors. We're thinking of them as well, whatever they think it is best for them, we're going to respect that and support them, continue supporting any way we could.
And you'll see, well, assuming that you're there on the finish line, you'll see a lot of those people.
That's the hope.
Coming up on the anniversary date here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a bittersweet moment in the sense of people you shared something with, but the memories as well are not always so pleasant as you've said. Well, you've been very busy. I noticed that you're Irish now too, I understand.
Of course.
Isn't everybody Irish on St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah, in case you didn't recognize my accent.
You were the Grand Marshals, the two of you, at the annual Peace Parade, the parade that follows the St. Patrick's Day parade in South Boston. Of course, still much controversy around that. Not about your parade, the parade that you were the marshals for, but the other parade as well. And it was nice to see you both out front and center on that, an issue like that. What next? Now, there's been so much focus on it, and we've got just a minute or two left because of the anniversary on the victims, the responders, the runners. This past year, I'm sure, has been almost a blur for you because people want to talk to you, as we did tonight. We appreciate you coming in and talking with us. We really do. What next for Carlos and Meloda Arrdondo?
Well, we're going to be, I don't think you'd call them grand marshals, but hosting this year's hosts for the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, which is on Mother's Day on May 11th, and that's for the Louis Brown Institute in Dorchester. And so we're looking forward to that. Something we've done for, I don't know, I've lost track, many years. It's a great way to be on.
Great event.
Great event, and we have become a part of the survivor community because of surviving the bombing. So we run into Tina in many different events, Tina and
Cherry,
the Brownings. Tina Cherry was at the St. Patrick's Day. We invited her, and we thought that was the right place to be. So we're still working on different peace work, and as well as suicide prevention. And in May also we'll be giving out scholarships once again for both alumni from the Blue Hill Regional Technical School, where Alexander went to school. And now the name of the scholarship is the Arrdondo Brother Memorial Scholarship, to remember them
wonderful.
both. So we still have our activities, but we hope to get more vacation in.
Well, I know you just came back from a trip. Now, have you given up the bull riding, the bull clowning?
Oh yeah, that was over. You know, I was.
Every once in a while, he gets a gleam in his eye, though.
Yeah, you know, that was a past.
And the cowboy hat, you give
Still
that up
on,
too?
yeah, still on. You know, on and off, and you know, it's been a good, amazing journey with amazing people that we've been doing along the way. You know, meeting and hearing their stories and amazing people here in Boston.
Other survivors, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you both
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
God bless. All right.
Thank you.
Carlos
Thank you for your
and
work.
Meloda Arrdondo here tonight on Talk to the Neighborhoods. As within the month will be the 1-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings, and the race hopefully this year will go off without any such problems. And I want to thank you both for joining us again. Well, we'll shift gears back to our usual topic, politics. Tonight, 2 more of the candidates running for the 5th Suffolk House seat. That's a seat that was given up by Carlos Hernandez as he was expelled from his House seat. Tonight, Barry Lawton, Jennifer Johnson join us. With more of Talk to the Neighborhoods, and in this half, we shift back to our usual want, all politics. Tonight, 2 more of the candidates running in the 5th Suffolk House race. That's a special primary election being held this upcoming Tuesday. Tonight, joining us, community activist, media sales professional Jennifer Johnson, and former East Boston High teacher. I think I got that right.
24 years. I had a few schools.
Barry Lawton joins us, and I want to thank you both for coming. Thank Jennifer.
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you.
Nice to
Thanks,
meet you.
Very nice to have you here. Last week, of course, we had Evandro Carvalho and Karen Charles Peterson. Now, what makes you think either one of you can win this race? And this is the first time you're running. Why did you jump into this race?
Very first time I'm running. You know, I jumped
You enjoying it?
I do. I really enjoy campaigning. I'm having a great time meeting people in the neighborhood and in the district and talking about the issues that are important to me and to the community. You know, I jumped into the race because I've lived in the district for 8 years, and I've talked to a lot of neighbors, like my neighbor here, Mr. Lawton, who've been in the district for decades. And it became apparent to me that a lot of the issues in the district with crime and people not being able to afford housing and some of the schools failing have been going on for decades. And I think at the core of that is because in our district we lack economic opportunities. So I decided to jump in because as somebody who has a business background and has been a community activist, I want to make sure that we develop jobs in the district, get training programs in the district, and make sure that we have good wages and good jobs for people.
Well, why not just vote for your neighbor?
It's a very good suggestion, Joseph.
I'll play a little devil's advocate
No,
here,
I
but-
hear
She
you.
was actually in before me, right?
I was in before you. And, you know, I think one of the things I bring to this race is that I have worked behind the scenes literally for decades, helping political candidates get elected, including Senators Kennedy and Warren. But truly, the first time I ever campaigned, I was 3 years old. My mother took me out campaigning.
At the
when-
bunting and
Yeah, well, not here, but where
Where
I'm
at?
from. Louisiana is where I grew up.
wow.
I've been here for 25 years in Massachusetts. So I've done this for decades, and I've been very active in the community. I'm on the boards of Bowdoin, Geneva Main Streets and the Dorchester Arts Collaborative, and I'm very active in the ward committee. And I have the business experience. And, you know, one of the things that when you're in media sales for as long as I've been in, what you have to do is you have to learn how to listen and negotiate. And I think that will serve me quite well as a legislator.
so a better question, well, why didn't you just vote for your neighbor?
Well, I think one of the reasons, the main reason that I'm running is the same reason that I've run previously. I believe that we need to have experienced, trained leadership. Our last 4 legislators from this district, none of them had prior legislative experience. I have written legislation to deal with the multiplicity of issues. I have been very involved in the community, as Jennifer would describe, decades, 33 years, working and serving as the chair of the All Dorchester Sports League, board of directors of the Daniel Moore Boys and Girls Club, Dorchester Day Celebrations Committee. The district looked a lot different in 1982 when I moved there, and we knew what the demographic shift was going to be. And I served in leadership roles within the community to make that shift happen smoothly. As you know, I'd say the first time that I thought about running for this office is when I walked into the State House in 1978 as a legislative aide to Roy Bowling Jr., serving Mattapan and parts of Dorchester. And I saw what this office could do. It's about making laws. If it were up to people that felt good and had passion for government and wanted to make a change, there would be a lot of candidates that would be eligible. But we need to send someone there that's skilled, that has the experience. And I've laid the foundation in this community. I've laid a great foundation with the Cape Verdean community. I visited Cape Verde, the Isles of San Antonio, São Vicente, Santiago, and Saul. So I've laid that foundation. With the Vietnamese community, have worked with them for the past decade and a half in getting them involved in civics project. So, you know, this is the most diverse community in the district. And you can't just go when you're running in a campaign and say, hi, I like what you're doing, I like your culture. With these different cultures, you have to have a record of proving to work with them.
So the difference in your mind, how you're different than the other candidates in this race, and I should mention just for the record that Roy Owens is also in this race, perennial candidate, is you're saying you bring experience. Jennifer, what about you? What makes you different than those other candidates? Evandro Carvalho, Karen Charles were here last week. They're claiming the same mandate.
Right. Well, I think I bring the broad range of experience. As I said, working in politics behind campaigns for decades, being a community activist and a community leader, and, you know, having a background in business. You know, and with what I've had to do in the business side, I've also had to work with people at very high levels of corporations, vice presidents, CEOs, business owners, and so I think I bring a full range of experience and well-rounded. And, you know, that's, I think, one of the things that makes me stand out.
How big of an issue is what happened with Representative Enriquez? Is that an embarrassment, or is that a kind of a double-edged sword because some people liked him? Do you talk about it, and how much does that come up in the course of the campaign? Start with you, and we'll go back to Barry.
Well, I haven't had that many people when I've talked to them, you know, ask me anything about it, honestly. You know, and when they do, I just speak, you know, honestly about the fact that I think for the district, it was kind of the perfect storm in a sense, because if there's two groups of people who've really been underrepresented or misrepresented by the justice system, it's women who have been assaulted or raped and men of color. And so it's completely understandable to me why, at least at the time, and I think some of the emotions might have cooled, but it's certainly understandable to me why initially, at least, emotions ran high.
Yeah. Barry, is that a touchy subject? You have to kind of step gingerly. You lost to him by 40-some
41 votes.
41
and
votes.
I won the majority of the precinct.
Right.
So, I had a difference with Carlos, which is why I continued to run in the sticker campaign. The last 3 state representatives that we've had in this district have left office early. 2 by choice and 1 with the situation with Carlos. That means 3 budget cycles where we haven't had anybody represented. Fortunately, Representative Fox took me down on the floor in 2010, and I was able to lobby for the Corey reform. But this office needs to have a leader that's committed, and I think I've demonstrated this is the only office I've ever run for. I'm skilled at it, and the situation with Carlos is very sad. It was even more sad to see him paraded in and out of the State House. That was very difficult to watch. Many people in the community are incensed that it happened, but I'm looking at it. That's the reality. There was a
Wait a minute. This is the guy that supposedly, forcibly kidnapped and sexually assaulted.
We have a system. We have a system of justice. He went through the system of justice. The jury found him guilty, and that's the reality that we're dealing with. But the real reality that we're dealing with is going forward. Where are we going to go? How are we going to solve the multiplicity of problems that we have? The number one problem is leadership. You can deal with individual problems. But you have so many issues. I think it's how you deal with the issues. You find a short-term solution to give you immediate satisfaction. For example, with the gun buyback program, that's a short-term problem. That's a small thing. But you have to attack the problem from the root. If you don't do that, it'll continue happening. So I think that comes with experience, with leadership to say, this is the direction that we need to go, and then you build the coalitions.
Well, are you daunted by the fact that this guy could be released from jail, will in all likelihood be released from jail, and could run in the primary? This is a special primary, could run in the primary in September, less than 6 months from now. If you are fortunate enough to win the seat, you could be campaigning nonstop from now until November. Daunting prospect, Jen?
No, not for me. I actually.
No, you're enjoying this.
I'm enjoying this. It seems, so in some ways it seems so similar to me for what I've been doing for 15 years, except now I get to discuss issues that are really near and dear to my heart and talk to people about the concerns they have and, try and think about creative solutions to the problems and how we can create legislation around that. So no, I enjoy this, and I hate to say it, I don't mind the long days.
Yeah. Well, certainly are. And Barry, you
this is a
just
democracy.
waiting for the rematch of sorts.
This is a democracy. As I said, in 2010, I won the majority of the precincts. So, to me, that was a victory in a sense, and it's just a continuation of this. When he comes out, he has to run on his record. Literally and figuratively. On his legislative record.
Yeah.
And I think if you put that forth, I filed 11 pieces of legislation in 1998. 2 of them have come to fruition. One is the commuter rails, the other one is the safety buses. But legislation to reduce absenteeism in public schools by offering free unlimited MBTA passes during the summer. A way to mitigate the absentee rate, which is the #1 impediment for student achievement. Walkovers for Roxbury Crossing and Ruggles Station. a light rail vehicle system going through Roxbury. The transportation system in Roxbury was better 75 years ago. I would describe rapid transit in Roxbury as running to the bus stop.
But yet, the next, if you, again, this is a primary election, and I remind our viewers again, it's Tuesday, April 1, followed by 4 weeks later, the special general election. Well, there's no Republicans on the ballot, so in all likelihood, the winner of this primary goes on.
One election at a time, Joseph.
What can you accomplish in that time, in that short time frame between, well, probably around May 1st, the legislature recesses around July 1st. Doesn't it put you in a tough spot?
Well, I know that for myself, one of the things that I would go in and work on.
What would you hope to accomplish in that period?
Right. One of the things I would go in and work on is the issue around the minimum wage law that's still being discussed. I would want to go in and set up an amendment to take, well, because right now the discussion is about creating 2 tiers of minimum wage, you know, a separate one for teenage workers. And I think it should be equal pay for equal work. So I would go in and propose an amendment right off the bat around that so that it's equal pay for equal work. That's one thing I would look to accomplish right away. There's also a lot of other legislation that's pending that I would be happy to support, like Speaker DeLeo's got legislation around domestic violence issues, which are really important in our
Never to
district.
mention Carlos Enriquez, right?
Well, yeah, that's I guess that's a sticky subject in this matter. But so there's, so those are things I think I would go in and work to accomplish right away. I think the discussion, sadly, around the budget will probably have come pretty close to the end by the time anybody is put in there. But those are things that I would look to do. Those are things I would look to do right away. And I just wanted to say something real quickly on policy, because my opponent here said something about absenteeism being one of the biggest problems for student achievement. And I actually disagree with that. I think the biggest problem for student achievement is that we don't have universal pre-K in our schools, because if we don't have, if our students aren't prepared by the time they hit kindergarten and first grade, if they're not, you know, at level or close to level, it's very difficult for them throughout the rest of their education to keep on track. And I think a lot of kids, as they get older, then become absentee because they were behind from the get-go.
So a priority
So,
for you sooner or later.
Would be to really work on getting more state aid into our urban districts, because our public education system, the reason we have failing schools in Boston is because the per pupil spend is so much less per year than you see in the city.
You know, I mean, you know, as a teacher for 24 years, I think I'm qualified to say what the #1 impediment in education is. And it's very important, as I said, to start from the root. But you can't learn if you're not there. And we have, for example, my first period class, I had over 50% absenteeism. And of the remainder that came, 30% of those
How come
came
no one's
late.
talking about that? How come they talk
Nobody's
about
talking
the
about that.
achievement
We're
gap?
talking-
They talk about well, take
Because
care
there's
of
not they need to have a teacher up in the legislature that can actually sit down with other legislators and say, look, this is not a matter of theory. If you look at the Legislative Reform Act of 2010, you know, you had people voting on that hadn't even read the bill. And it greatly impacted it. The Legislation Reform Act of 2003 that put in place the NCAS greatly altered education. We no longer are teaching kids the well-rounded education that you or I or Jennifer might have had.
Well, and one of the things that's really percolating up there is, of course, charter schools. And I would venture to say there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people in your district on a waiting list to get into charter schools because they don't believe in the Boston Public Schools. And what do you say to them? Would you vote to expand the cap and increase the number of charter schools?
Well, I don't know. There are charter schools out there that are performing better than, the average public school, and then there are others that are not performing as well as the public schools, and some that are performing just as well. And the way I look at it is, if you're not performing better than the public schools, I don't know why we're sending public money to you. That's my personal philosophy
So you
about
would
it.
have a performance base.
So I think it should be, performance-based. But I think in my mind, the charter school question is really a red herring. The real issue is that because of the way in the state we fund public education primarily through local property taxes, in Boston, the average per pupil spend is about $15,500 per year for public school students. If you go out to the suburbs, there will be a range, but it's closer to $20,000 to $23,000 per year per student in their public schools. And this is why you don't hear about a public school failing in Wellesley or Newton. And in fact, you hear that some of those public schools are in fact considered among the best in the country. So it's a lack of resource issue, and I don't think it hits just Boston. I would be willing to bet you could see it in Springfield, Worcester, Lawrence, Lowell, and I would want to go in and create
That's
coalitions.
interesting.
around that.
I think, though, the per pupil costs are in Cambridge is number one in the state. So, but Barry, you're a former teacher now, retired. You have a lot of education bills up there. Are you going up there to carry water
I think
for
we
the
need to
union?
revisit.
Or
I think we
you
need.
have,
Well, it's not a red herring to me, because the loss of collective bargaining rights for teachers is real. The loss of $90 million per year out of the Boston public school system is real, and the charter schools don't have to take every child. For example, they might give you, when you look at the waiting list, they're counting kids multiple. They might be on a waiting list for several charter schools, yet they are counted
so
on
that
each
number
of those
isn't.
We have to determine, and I have called for a moratorium on charter schools until we find out what is. For example, I believe in good schools, whether they're charter schools or public schools, and I would be supportive of either of those. But I think that when you have a sales pitch, when a charter school comes to you and says, we have 99% of our graduates going on to public school, that may be true, but only 37% that entered in the 9th grade even matriculate. And then there are hurdles that parents have to make commitments and sign contracts. Why would you have a school system that's failing create another one? We have success stories in Boston. The exam schools, Boston Latin Academy, the O'Brien School. I think our immediate need right now is another exam school in the community to expand educational opportunities for families. Some families in Boston are double dipping. They're paying for the public school system, yet they're not satisfied with it, so they are carrying the burden of private.
Education's still a big issue. We've got just a minute or so left, and here's your last chance. Take a look into that camera and give your final pitch. Jennifer Johnson first.
Thank you. Well, I'm running because I want to make sure people in our district have economic opportunities. That's vital for everyone, so that we can make sure that we decrease crime and that people can afford to continue to live in Boston. And one of the things that I will bring to the role as a legislator is, I can promise you, I have integrity, I have experience, and I have passion to serve the community.
Thank you. And Barry?
I would say that I would ask the voters not to continue to do the same thing that we have done. We need to, number one, have a leader that has been in the community, that has worked and served, that has actually done the job that's being required, written legislation, because that's what a legislator does. I would ask for you to give me that opportunity to bring my skills. I've been on the front line of our future in the classroom for nearly 24 years, lost a very close election. We almost made it. I believe we can make it this time. This is the lowest voting district in the state. It's because of the challenge of diversity, but that is also our asset. I would like to bring that leadership, to bring that diversity, promote businesses in our community, and bring the quality of life that people in the 5th Suffolk District deserve.
Okay, and again, that's the 5th Suffolk District, runs from Meeting House Hill,
Fields
Fields
Corner
Corner,
to Dudley to behind
Grove
Grove
Hall.
Hall, down Geneva. So
Portland, Geneva.
it's got 6 different wards.
Wow,
So it's
and
kind of
the special election, this is a special primary election, this coming Tuesday, April 1st. Your vote will count. Likely to be a low turnout. Everyone is important tonight. Barry Lawton, Jennifer Johnson, 2 of the 5 Democrats in this race. The others, Evandro Carvalho and Karen Charles Peterson, also Roy Owens, perennial candidate. You're watching Talk in the Neighborhoods every Monday night, I should say, at the same time. We'll be back next week. Till then, for the entire staff and crew, thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.